My ex humiliated me in front of his friends, cheated with a blonde sorority girl, and called me boring. Even his friends called me a-hole and now he wants me back after 3 failed relationships and toxic exes. I, 21 female, dated James, 23 male, for about 3 years. From the outside, we seemed like a classic case of opposites attract. I'm quiet, painfully so, sometimes. I've always struggled with social anxiety and have a hard time opening up to people, even those I care about. Talking about my day, my thoughts, even basic things. It doesn't come naturally. James, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. He's the life of the party, a true extrovert, a social butterfly in every sense of the word. He can spark a conversation with anyone, anywhere. I always admired that about him. How effortlessly he connected with people. But that difference in our personalities was always a quiet tension in our relationship. James would constantly invite me, sometimes pressure me, into his social world. His friends were loud, outgoing, fast-talking people who seemed to live off chaos and attention. Whenever we went to parties or group hangouts, I would really try to be part of things. I'd sit there, smile, nod, and attempt small talk, even though I felt like an alien in their world. But it always ended the same way. I'd say something and get talked over, ignored, or given blank stares that made me shrink further into myself. Eventually, I'd be completely sidelined, sitting quietly while everyone else carried on like I wasn't there. I brought it up to James many times. I told him I felt excluded, that his friends didn't even try to get to know me, and worse, they often came off as rude. But he would always brush it off. They're just not patient like that, or they don't mean to be rude. He never took it seriously. And every time, I'd swallow my discomfort just to avoid starting another conversation that felt like I was complaining. To be clear, I was never a jealous or toxic girlfriend. I didn't go through his phone. I never accused him of anything. But the truth is, a lot of his female friends would flirt with him, and they did it right in front of me. Some even touched him or made suggestive comments, while I was right there. I'd feel invisible. And while I tried to be cool about it, my insecurities only grew because James never seemed to shut it down, or even notice how disrespectful it felt. Then came the night everything fell apart. We were at yet another party, one of his friends' places. I had been trying really hard all night to make conversation, smile, be pleasant. I was exhausted from pretending like I belonged. After about an hour, I got up to grab some snacks for the group, thinking maybe it was a small thing I could do to be helpful, to participate. I turned to James and casually told him, "I'm going to grab more snacks." That's when he snapped. Out of nowhere, in front of everyone, he said loudly, "See? You're just finding an excuse to leave the party. That's why my friends don't like you." I just froze. The room fell quiet for a second, and then people started whispering. I told him I wasn't leaving, just getting snacks, but he cut me off. "I'm done with you," he said. "Don't ever contact me again." His words echoed through the room. And then, what broke me the most, his friends started cheering. Like it was some big win. Like I had just been voted off the island or something. I felt humiliated. Betrayed. Reduced to nothing in a space I never truly belonged in to begin with. I didn't even cry right away. I walked out of that party quietly, holding back everything I was feeling, trying to keep my composure as I stepped away from the people who had never made me feel welcome, and the person who claimed to love me but never stood up for me once. After that night, the one where James broke up with me in front of a room full of people like I was some kind of joke, I felt like I'd hit the lowest point I'd ever known. I left that party in complete shock, but the second I got in my car, everything came pouring out. I cried harder than I think I ever have in my entire life. Not just quiet tears. I'm talking full body, gasping for air, sobbing, kind of crying. I was gripping the steering wheel, headlights lighting the road ahead, but my vision was a blur of tears. It felt like something inside me had cracked open. The humiliation was unbearable. I kept replaying the moment in my head, his words, his tone, the way his friends actually cheered when he broke up with me, like I was some burden finally being lifted off his shoulders. He didn't even pull me aside for a private conversation. Didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't offer me the dignity of a one-on-one talk. Just loud, cruel dismissal. In front of everyone. When I got home, I blocked him. Everywhere. His number, his social media, even mutual friends who I knew had been in that room that night, and did nothing. I shut it all off. And for a long time, I carried around the shame, like I had done something wrong just by being quiet. Like my personality had cost me love. But eventually things started to get better. I poured everything I had into rebuilding my self-esteem. I got into therapy. I focused on school, on work, on friendships with people who actually made space for me and my silence. Slowly but surely, I learned to stop apologizing for who I was. I stopped feeling like I needed to mold myself into the kind of girl people wanted at parties. I realized being soft-spoken and introverted didn't make me any less worthy of love, or kindness, or respect. And by the time a year had passed, I genuinely felt free from that relationship. I had moved on. I was proud of how far I'd come. So imagine my surprise when, just a few days ago, I got a text from an unknown number. Local area code. I didn't recognize it, but curiosity got the best of me. I opened it. It was James. At first, the message was casual. He talked about how life had been going for him, where he was working, and how things had changed. Then came the part one didn't expect. He said he'd been in 3 relationships since our breakup. All of them, according to him, ended badly. One girl cheated. Another was too controlling. The last one, emotionally unstable. He told me he missed how things were with me, that I never complained, that I was the calm one, the good one, the one who didn't make his life harder. He said he realized now how rare that was. And he wanted to know, could we try again? I stared at that message for a long time. And all I could think about was how ironic it was that now he remembered me as some perfect, peaceful girlfriend, after he'd let his friends cheer at my humiliation like I was garbage. There was no apology in his message. Not once did he say, I'm sorry for what I did, or I shouldn't have treated you like that. He didn't acknowledge the pain he caused. He just framed it like he'd finally figured out I was the one who had it all together after years of trial and error with other women. I was stunned, and honestly angry. Angry that it took him being treated badly to recognize what I had given him: love, patience, presence. Angry that he didn't even have the decency to begin with an apology. Angry that he thought he could waltz back into my life like nothing had happened just because he was lonely now. I took a breath and I responded. I told him I was sorry his relationships didn't work out the way he'd hoped. But I also told him that I didn't think we were ever truly compatible. That, yes, I loved him once, but I don't think I could ever trust him again, much less fall in love with him. I said I had moved on, that I was doing well, and I hoped he would heal, too, but that a second chance just wasn't in the cards for us. Then I blocked the number. And just like that, I went on with my day. Just when I thought I had finally put it all behind me, his text, my response, the closure I thought I'd given both of us, the situation exploded all over again. It started small. One message from a number I didn't recognize. Then 2. Then 3. Suddenly, I was getting angry texts from people I hadn't spoken to in over a year, James's friends. At first, I didn't even believe it. I stared at my phone, stunned at what I was reading. They were calling me all kinds of names, telling me I was a heartless B***tch for not giving James a second chance. One of them actually had the nerve to call me a slut. For what, exactly? For refusing to go back to a man who humiliated me in front of them? For saying no to someone who only realized my worth after dating people who mistreated him? It didn't stop with texts either. They started blowing up my phone with calls, multiple times a day. Sometimes they'd hang up right away, sometimes they'd leave voicemails, most of them nasty and childish. It felt like I was back in high school, being targeted by a group of mean kids who just wanted to gang up on someone quieter than them. Only now I was older, and this was even more pathetic. I was shaken and honestly angry, because I knew for a fact that James had to be the one who told them. There's no way they would have known I said no unless he shared that with them. It felt like a betrayal all over again. Like he just casually let his friends off the leash to come after me while pretending to be the good guy looking for redemption. So I did what I should have done from the start. I took screenshots. Every message. Every name they called me. I even recorded a couple of the voicemails, just in case. Then I unblocked James. Not because I wanted to talk, but because he needed to see what was happening in his name. I sent him everything. No explanation, no warning. Just the screenshots. What came next surprised me. He actually responded quickly. And for the first time, he sounded genuinely shaken. He apologized. He told me he had no idea they were doing that he hadn't asked them to reach out, and certainly hadn't expected them to bombard me with harassment. He said he was disgusted by their behavior and embarrassed that they thought this was somehow appropriate. He even admitted that maybe he had been blind to how toxic his group of friends could be, and that seeing the screenshots finally opened his eyes. And while I appreciated the apology, I didn't hold back. I told him this mess, this childish, cruel behavior from grown adults, was exactly why I could never give him another chance. because I had spent 3 years of my life quietly putting up with that kind of energy, always feeling like the odd one out, the boring girlfriend who didn't fit in. I told him I was tired of being surrounded by people who didn't respect me, or even try to. And the worst part? I was the youngest in the group, and yet I was the only one acting like an adult. He said he understood, that he didn't blame me. He even said he didn't reach out hoping to change my mind anymore. He just felt like he owed me something for all the trouble, the hurt, the pain. I told him he didn't owe me anything. What's done is done. I've already taken the lessons, the heartbreak, the healing, and carried it with me. I told him I wasn't going back to old scraps just because they were familiar. I've worked too hard to rebuild my self-worth to start over with someone who only values me when I'm gone. He said he understood. He said he was sorry again. Just when I thought the chapter was finally closed, he opened his mouth one last time. Right as I was trying to wrap up the conversation, to end things on whatever little sliver of peace we could salvage, James decided to drop one more truth bomb. And this one? It was the kind of thing I had quietly suspected for years but never had proof of until now. He told me that during the time we were together, he had cheated on me. Specifically, with one of his girlfriends. The same ones I used to express concern about. The ones who would flirt with him in front of me, laugh too loud at his jokes while ignoring me completely, act like I was invisible whenever I was around. Yeah, those ones. He confirmed that he'd been sneaking around, as he put it, with one of them. Apparently some blonde sorority type who was more fun and less uptight than I was. And suddenly, everything made sense. The way he'd acted so short with me at that party. The way he snapped at me over something as small as going to grab snacks. The public breakup. The cheering from his friends. It wasn't just a breakup, it was a performance. A way to wash his hands of me in front of an audience, to justify his actions. And now, years later, he tells me this as if he's offering some kind of gift. Closure, he called it. Closure? Closure would have been an honest conversation 3 years ago. Closure would have been admitting what he'd done and apologizing like a human being instead of throwing me out like trash in the middle of a party. Instead, I got an overdue confession paired with some half-hearted nonsense about how he just needed to be honest before moving on. Like I was the one holding him back. Like my silence all this time had somehow given him permission to come crawling back now. I told him nothing. Just sat there for a second, staring at the message. And then I did the one thing that brought me instant peace. I blocked him. Again. For good. No dramatic goodbye. And here's the twist I didn't expect. My phone finally went quiet. His friends stopped calling. No more spam messages. Even the one who kept leaving voicemails full of garbage? Gone. Blocked. It's like the moment James was out of the picture, they lost the fuel for their fire. But the thing that really threw me off was the text I got later that night. It was from his mom. She messaged me, completely out of the blue, just to say sorry. She apologized for her son's behavior, told me I didn't deserve what happened, and hoped I was doing okay. That one message hit harder than I thought it would. I don't know why it made me tear up, maybe because it was the first time someone from that side actually acknowledged the damage he caused. I thanked her, politely, but didn't open a conversation. That chapter's closed now. For real. And honestly, I'm grateful. Not to James, but to everyone here who told me not to give him a second chance. I'm a people pleaser by nature. Always trying to keep things calm, smooth things over, keep the peace, even when it's hurting me. I think part of me was scared that maybe I was being cold or bitter for not responding the way he wanted. But no. I wasn't bitter. I was done. And this final confession, as messed up as it was, gave me the one thing I didn't know I still needed. Validation. That the breakup was never about me being boring, or antisocial, or not enough. It was about him, his immaturity, his insecurity, his inability to respect someone who wasn't a carbon copy of his loud, attention-seeking social circle. I'm not angry anymore. Just relieved. Relieved that I didn't fall back into that mess. Relieved that I didn't let one nostalgic text unravel all the healing I've done. Relieved that I've grown enough to know the difference between real love and someone who only misses you when everyone else treats them worse. So no. I'm not the a-hole for refusing to give him another chance.